Trent Dilfer. Was 30 for 30, Lee? Is that the credit we're going to give on this? 30 for 30? Is that what we're looking at here?
That's what I have on the cut sheet. Yes.
All right, so Trent Dilfer, the Super Bowl winning quarterback back in the day. Now the head coach is at UAB. Is that he's the head coach there? Yeah. So Trent, a brand new head coach. He was at Lipscomb Academy in Nashville, one of the top high school football programs in the country, and he had this to say about a couple of quarterbacks in the NFL.
Modern day game does not impress me. It's super easy when you don't get hit as a quarterback and when you can't reroute receivers and when you can't hit guys across the middle. I love Tom Brady. I love Aaron Rodgers. I love these guys. It's not impressive. What's impressive is what they did.
I think the general consensus is he's discussing probably the rules and how they're set up to protect quarterbacks now versus what they were back then.
I could rattle off 28, 29 quarterbacks that would be better than him when he played.
Oh.
We could probably grab 20 to 28 starters in the league right now, and if they were on the same team as Trent Dilfer, he wouldn't be starting.
Wait, you mean that Ravens team didn't win because of the quarterback? Is that what you're trying to say?
I would say this, though. What strikes me is I don't really understand. Like I guess if you want to question the direction the league's going because of how they're protecting quarterbacks, okay, that's fair. That's fine. It's not like what it used to be, but they also understand that when you lose your starting quarterback, I mean, even a guy who was the third string starting quarterback in the NFC Championship game,
he made a pro.
When the 49ers lost him, they had nothing. And so that's usually what happens to a season for most teams when they lose their starting quarterback. They're not able to overcome losing a starter and having a backup play well and then a third-string guy play well, like the 49ers did. That's a very rare circumstance. So the NFL is trying to protect, the competitiveness of the game and all of the money they're making off all these TV networks so that they can sell these games, right? But I also feel like quarterback play is as good as it's ever been. It's why so many young guys come into the league and can do what they're doing. It's not because they're not getting hit. Because I would also argue that guys are still, they're as fast as they've ever been. They hit as hard as they've ever been. It might be different, but they're still putting hits on quarterbacks, still doing all of that. I don't know. I'm not sure why some people, take these shots or want to die on these hills.
So I was looking up because I was thinking just in the Russell Wilson, but it ties back to the quarterback position and the quality of play. So I was thinking, if you look at the Russell Wilson scenario, big-time trade for a lot of picks, goes over, first season was a disaster. What's the comp to that? And the only one I could come up with is Jay Cutler, who got traded, multiple first-round picks, goes to the Bears. And I thought, but his first season wasn't as bad as Russell Wilson. Cutler threw 26 picks that year.
Is that bad?
But to your point on the quarterback position, we were talking this year when Derek Carr had the lead and he had 14. It's like half of what was considered.
Berto's back to get him out of there. Get him out of there. Put it instead of.
Jameis Winston threw 30. That wasn't that long ago. So just in that short amount of time, you've seen if you just go by that category alone, they're not turning the ball over at rapid numbers, and that was the norm. Remember, Eli Manning led the league in interceptions one year, and we're talking about him like he's a Hall of Famer, like he's going to go to the Hall of Fame.
I think the protection they've provided the receivers, now being in the act of catching, considering them defenseless, now that's changed the game. Because as a quarterback, you naturally, when you see a guy running towards another defender, you're going to throw the ball behind him. It's just human nature. You don't want to throw a pick. You don't want to have your guy get hung out to dry. And so you can do it as many times as you want. You will not find a quarterback who's going to be able to lead his guy into that defender. Now, if you ever see it happen in the game, I guarantee the quarterback didn't see the defender. And that's why he was able to lead him. But naturally, he sees the guy, he's going to try to slow him down, put it on his back shoulder or back hip. I feel like now with the way they're protected, quarterbacks feel more emboldened to throw it up into tight windows and take chances because they know those guys aren't getting hit the same way they used to be hit, where it was night-night. Those guys were hurt in a serious way based on how defenders used to be able to play the game. They can't play that way anymore.
You remember that Kurt Warner, Anquan Bolden play where he threw him? I think Anquan Bolden might have broken his jaw. and Kurt Warner was talking about he didn't know if he wanted to play football anymore. He felt so bad about leading him into the hit that he just it really bothered him.
Was that a part of the documentary?
I don't know if that was, or the movie. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was. Don't worry, Lee. That's probably all one price for the Kurt Warner movie when you go to AMC. It's not tiered pricing for that movie if you want to go check that out.
You know, the interesting thing about what I said, I led off with, I wasn't trying to be insulting towards Trent Dilfer.
Isn't he being insulting towards Brady and Rodgers, though?
I mean, well, think about this. Like everything you guys just said, like first of all, he's thrown more interceptions. He threw more interceptions in his career than he did touchdowns.
Yeah,
he did do that. He also
don't say that. Bother. Stop doing it.
He was also signed to that Ravens team as a backup.
That's right.
He was brought in to be now he was a 6th overall pick.
Was it Bowler he took over, or was it Bowler after him?
Bowler was after. I don't recall the quarterback, but I do recall he was brought in to be a backup. Now here's what's interesting. They win the Super Bowl. He gets released.
And they got Elvis Gerbach.
Okay.
Yeah.
He gets released after winning a Super Bowl and basically was a backup the rest of the way of his career. So to me, my whole thing is if you're going to throw observations as strong as that, you're not impressed by today's quarterback, I would say because you played the game and you had the opportunity in a moment to win a Super Bowl as a starting quarterback, like I would be more positive about my assessments, even if I felt in my heart what he said. I feel like why do that? Because when you do that, when you shine that light on what you feel is not good and how you're not impressed and this and that, then everybody's going to be like, okay, it's easy to say a reporter like, oh, you're a reporter, you never played, like you don't know anything, and it's kind of like you brush it off. But this guy did play,
right? And
he is a Super Bowl champ. So people are going to start dissecting you,
right?
They're going to start looking at your body of work.
I already saw some guy tagged a clip where Dilfer airmailed. It was a wide open go route on the sideline, and he just threw it out of bounds. And like that's the response you're going to get from a lot of people, right? Like,
and it's not going to be unwarranted. The problem here.
How about somebody having that in their back pocket for 15 years? Go, man, if Dilfer ever runs
literally,
his mouth.
it was a clip from like 20-some years ago.
And listen, he might be a fine coach. I don't think this has anything to do with him as a coach.
He's a good guy, too, and that's why I don't really understand it, because what you really could do and what you could say, and I think, look, I fall victim to this sometimes. Things don't come out the way I want to portray them always, or I don't communicate it the proper way.
Nah.
But what you could say is, look, the game was harder to play. It was harder to play quarterback back then. Like that's all you need to say is it was harder because it was more physical.
And he would be right.
Well, and by the way,
he would be right.
You could reach out.
Nobody would have a problem with that.
You could reach out to Tom Brady and go, "Hey, Tom, you were winning Super Bowls during this era. Would you agree? Like, you were getting hit worse then.
Yeah.
You were, in an era where we had drop back a little bit. We weren't in shotgun a ton. It was a lot of, play action, other things off of it. It wasn't like the game is now where it's more spread out.
1.5. At one point, you got 2 steps.
Yeah.
Then it went down to 1.5. But it was always no less than 1.5. Like you could get, if you got 1.5 as the ball's released.
Right.
Like listen, think about this. Ball's released, 1,
2 hit.
Right?
Now that's how it is, yeah.
So you don't even get that type of space. You touch them the wrong way, it's a flag. So to me, we were slamming quarterbacks. We were taking them down to the ground.
You could hit them low. You could hit them
however you wanted to hit them. And so I would say if he was just pointing out the obvious, that it was more brutal.
Right.
There was more brutality towards quarterbacks in his era. That's fine, but to say I'm not impressed, that's like, come on, man. Now you're basically saying like, well, the whole argument, if Michael Jordan played in today's NBA, he would be averaging such and such and such, like, because you can't touch them. Like, it's Michael Jordan.
Right.
It's Michael Jordan. Well, you don't have an argument against that.
I just don't know how you can't be impressed, considering how old's Trent Dilfer? Is he 50? I mean, Tom Brady's 45, turning 46 this year.
He's 50.
Okay,
they're the same age.
They're like 4 or 5 years apart.
And how long have you been out of the game?
Well, and that I just look at it and go, what's not impressive about that? The fact that the guy's been able to play at such a high level for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, even this past year, say whatever you want about it, he's still hit, I mean, the marks for being a guy that you look at and you say he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Without much running help, with much balance in their offense, without great protection all the time.
I just led the league in attempts.
You're just not a good.
His final 2 years in the NFL at 44 and 45 years old.
His body of work is just not good enough for him to lob out a criticism like that.
Even if it was even if he was, I'm not even sure. Like, even if it was Joe Montana saying it, I just look at it and go, okay, but. Like, why do you have to phrase it like that? Like,
but it's Joe Montana, and you could be like, you know what? Like, he's flexing. That's a flex. Like, it might not even be true, but it's Joe Montana. Like, Joe Montana said, if you were like Joe Montana, if Joe Montana was in this era, Joe Montana would be throwing touchdowns or doing this. Like, okay, that's a discussion point. It's a discussion. But it's like, if you haven't achieved to that level, people are going to now, even with Joe Montana, people are going to be like, well, what did Joe Montana do? You're going to look at what Joe Montana, that's what Joe Montana did. Because you brought that attention your way back with that criticism. That's all I'm saying.
No,
whether it's true or not. Yeah, whether it's true or not.
I get that, but we get pundits in the media who say stuff all the time. They're paid to do it. So
of course.
And they haven't played, so it is what it is.
And
but
you're going to get a reaction.
My point's just, look, you can just say it in a different way.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to look like you're being catty. You're taking a shot at guys who.
Right.
I mean, Tom Brady's doing something.
In my day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tom Brady's doing something we'll never see anyone do again in the NFL.
Truth.
And to sit there and say, like, I don't know how that's not impressive. I really don't. And I think, even though the game's more spread out and maybe it's easier to throw the football at times, I still do think there's elements of the game that have gotten more difficult. With the speed of the defensive players and all the different looks, different things they can do, there are some more difficulties that the game has gotten for a quarterback than what it used to be.
And the skill level for quarterbacks is significantly better.
The skill level of everyone is significantly increasing.
I was just going to – so I remember talking to TJ Hushmanzada, who, by the way, you can hear with LaVar and Up on Game on Saturday.
What a promo.
Right before the Jonas Knox show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it starts so young that you go to some of these camps and these high schoolers or kids getting into high school that are playing receiver are just on another level. And you've seen over the past couple of years, how many wide receivers go in the draft every single year, second, third round, just stud after stud.
Just specialized. It's so much specialized training. Like, it was never like this. It was never like this to this capacity of specialized training. And that's the difference. That's the difference. If you're doing skill development from 7, 8 years old, and you're doing that all the way up until you're in college, like, you are going to have refined movements. You're going to have, I don't know about the understanding of it all. I'm not really sure about that. But in terms of just purely, you're going to run this route, here's the route, and knowing how to get off of a press or knowing how to run a route or get to the top of the route or change the route, double moves, all those different things, you have a ton of skill to go with what it is that you're doing these days. Much different than any other era of time of playing.